Father, this morning, thank you for your presence here. Boy, I probably could have just stayed off stage, and we could have probably just kept sung. We could have just sang. And we could have walked out of here going, that was good. That was good. Because if all we do today is give you praise and adoration, I think that's a good morning. I think we can walk out of here saying, boy, I think that the throne of God was honored today, and my heart was lifted up, and that's a good thing. But I know you have a challenge for us today, and it's been one I've been living with this week. It's one I get the joy of unpacking this morning. It's a tough subject matter. It's a tough subject matter. It hits us right in the rear end. And so today, I ask you to soften our hearts and give us ears to hear today, eyes to see, help us not be defensive, even when we feel your Holy Spirit may be poking us on the shoulder going, that might be you. Help us be okay. Help us be open this morning to your challenge of what it means to be Christ-like, what it means to be conformed to this image of Jesus Christ, and what it will mean today for our church to go forward. And we thank you and ask all these things in Jesus' name. And everybody said, all right, so if you're visiting with this morning, I'm just going to flat out tell you that I did not plan this message with you in mind. When I sat down on Monday, we talked about this actually in our leadership team over the last couple of weeks. You weren't the person that we had in mind for today. So if you're visiting, again, thanks for coming. Thanks for hanging out with us today. You may get something out of this morning. I kind of hope you do, but you weren't like when I sat down, I thought, this is who I'm talking to this morning. However, I do want to talk to those of us this morning who would say these things. We'd say this. I really love my church. I really love the church. I love what we're about. I love what we're doing. You know, I love the vision we've been talking about these last couple of weeks. I love the direction that we're moving in. I love what Ashley and Angel and the team over here have begun to do with our children's ministry. I love what's happening on our stage. Jared, our musicians today, Josh and Eric and Liz, what they're leading us in on the weekends. I love that. I really love the newness and excitement, like walking in and going, wow, every week there's something different. I have no idea what to expect. I had no idea, unless you were on Instagram or Facebook. You already had this ruined because you saw pictures of it everywhere last night. But you love what we're doing. Even more importantly, you love what God's been doing in our midst. Because you can look back over the last couple of weeks and months and go, this is just insane. What he's doing and where he's leading, we just could not have predicted this in any way, shape, or form. So this morning, I want to talk to you. To those of us who say we love our church, but we don't have a plan. And here's the key word for today. The big word for today is we don't have a plan. I want to talk to those of us who love our church, but we don't have a plan in how to consistently and ongoingly, that's not a word, but I made it up anyways, give to the church. All right? So everybody just went, because we're talking about money. I don't know why we can't talk about this subject in the church. We can talk about everything else. When we talk about money, everybody just kind of goes, but that's when I want to talk about those of us today who love our church, but we don't have an ongoing plan today for how we're going to give. So again, if you're visiting this morning, I understand. We understand. Hey, you're just here. You're not in love with what we're doing yet. That's all right. Consider today like a first date or maybe a second date, depending on how often you've been here. We hope you fall in love with what we're doing, but today you're not. Are we all right? What? Why are you pointing at each other? It's like working in high school ministry again. She did it. Okay. We can all laugh, and I can also try and figure out where I am. Okay, so. Just blame my wife. She throws me off every week. She laughs. All right. Are we good? Is everybody all right? Look at the person next to you. Look at them. Point at them if you need to. We're all done. We're great. Okay. All right, so if you're visiting with us today, first or second time, just get comfortable. Pull out Facebook or Twitter on your phone. I don't care. Hopefully you're going to listen, but I'm just going to tell you this isn't directed at you today. But if you're with me and you've been coming for some time, if you would call yourself maybe a regular attender to what we do at here 321, you say, I love the church. I love my church, but we don't have a plan financially. Now, this doesn't mean we don't drop our $5 in the bucket every week. I get that. It doesn't mean that we aren't about special projects and Ashley gets up here and says, I need this. We are all over that, and I am so grateful for that. I really want to talk to those of us, though, this morning that don't have a specific plan. Like we walk in here, but we don't have a plan for how we're going to consistently get. In other words, if I were to get together with you today, if we were to go down to Starbucks, take your pick. I like the one on Talmadge. And if I were to sit down with you across from a venti, decaf, salted caramel mocha, that's what I would have. You take the drink of your choice. If I were to sit across from you today at Starbucks and say to you, hey, what is your plan for financially supporting us? What's your plan? What do you have down? You would look at me and say, I really don't know. I really don't know, because we don't have a plan. You're not a percentage giver. You're not the kind of person that has a set amount that you give every so often. You don't show up this morning kind of with a check written. You didn't hit up the ATM this morning or yesterday. There just isn't a plan. You love our church. You love what we're about, but you don't have a plan. That's who we want to talk to. So let me ask you a question. Okay, are we all ready? Everybody's still smiling at this point. That's a good sign. What do you call a dad? What do you call a dad who says this? I love my children, but I don't give them any money. Well, you'd call that me, actually, at this point. But no, let's qualify that. I love my kids, but I don't give them any money. I mean, I don't support them financially. I mean, if they like beg me, if they're like down to one pair of underwear, if their hair is just absolutely out of control, there's nothing else we can do about it. I mean, if things are really, really desperate, they're really desperate, I might give them money. And if they can convince me that they need money, then I'll give them money. What would you call a dad? What do you call a dad who says, I love my kids, but I don't support them financially, only if they're really, really desperate? What do you call that? A deadbeat? I call that, I wasn't going to be that harsh, Tim, thanks. You call that a bad dad, right? We call that a bad dad. Somebody who says they love their kids but doesn't support them financially. All right, everybody get comfortable. What do you call a Christian who says, I really, really love my church. I love what we do. I love what's happening in children's ministry. I love the music. I love the people that I'm meeting or getting to know and hanging out with. They seem really, really cool. I love my church, but I don't support them financially on a regular basis. What do you call that person? You know what you call them? You call them the average Christian. That's what you call them, because the average Christian doesn't have a plan. It's just what average Christians do. I mean, this is statistically shown. I've been in ministry for 25 years. I can't beat down this statistic. It's not just our church. It's every church I've ever been a part of. And here's the thing. I don't want us to be average. Just hear me. I don't want us to be average. There's a lot of average churches I can go to. I don't want to be average. I don't want you to have average marriages. I don't want you to raise average kids. I don't want you to have an average passion about life and an average passion about what God has called you to do. And listen, I certainly don't want us to be average followers of Jesus. I just don't. I don't want to be average, and I hope you don't want to be average either. But this is a fact that concerns me. Now, before you get suspicious and before you begin to wonder, I question these numbers, our leadership team met together this past Wednesday. We got all the financial records together for all the time we've been meeting, all 6 months. So you know as well, nobody in that room except one person knows what all of you are giving. So I don't want you to think we sat down and went, oh, there's the Sorgies. We did not do that. We just brought together our giving trend over the last couple of weeks. We've looked at it. So everybody knows your giving was confidential. I don't want you to feel like today that was violated in any way, shape, or form. We would never do that. But our leadership team sat together this past Wednesday, and this is what we determined by giving, just in the months that we've been together. About 66% of us who are regular attenders, not those of you who are visiting or visiting the last couple of weeks, about 66% of us who are regular attenders at 321 do not regularly give to the church. 66%. Now, hear me. 90% of us have given a gift at one point or another. Like you've given financially. 90% of us have given at one point or another. And please hear me. I am really grateful for that. Don't hear us trivializing today what you've done or how you've given. That is not me communicating that today. But what that means is there's only 34% of us this morning that are regularly contributing to what we're calling Church 321. Now, when I look at that on Wednesday and I get in my car to go home, I have to tell you, part of me takes it personally. And I kind of feel like, man, I am just a loser as a leader. Now, that's just me. That's just my story I've got to deal with. And then I think, well, it's only been a few weeks, so I'm not the one to blame. So then I can kind of pass that off a little bit, but I can kind of take it personally. But obviously, the fact that I sit here today, and we have this 34-66 principle going on. By the way, the average church is about 30-70. 30% of the people giving regularly to church, and 70% are not. I mean, at least we're not 30-70. We're 34-66. But what that means is there's 66% of us who come to things regular here at 321, or we call 321 home, but we don't support the church on a regular basis. And hear that. I'm talking a regular basis. Not that you haven't given, but we mean kind of weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever it is that you have set up. Now, I hate to sound harsh, and please don't take this way. But in all honesty, I'm up here to tell you today that just has to stop. Because we're already starting into a trend that the average church is in. And it has to stop because there is so much more we believe that God is calling us to do here in West Sylvania to impact this community and Centennial Farms and Eagle Trace and Cobblestone and all the way out to Berkey or Barkey, whatever it is, because I never travel up that way. It's Indian country out there. I never even get out that far. You know what I mean? We just believe, we sit here this morning believing that God has placed us in this building and in this zip code for a very specific reason. It is unmistakable to any of us who've been around here that we landed here. It's not like we're walking in this morning going, it's the best place we got. God opened doors here. Whole nother story. But there's too much. We have too much that needs to be done for us to live off at 34%. Because here's the deal. Even if with all we've had to do and all we've done, we've lived off at 34%, that's a God thing. That's amazing. It's absolutely amazing that we've been able to do all that you see around you with an average of 34%. So again, I've been in ministry. This statistic doesn't come at me as a surprise. I've been in churches where we were 30-70, 80-20. But here's the deal. Here's what I just want to say to all of us. I mean, including all of us. Come on. Come on, we're better than this. I mean, we're just better than this. We want to be better than average. We want to be a better than average church because I know you love 321. I know in the short time that we've been doing this, you love what we're doing. I look at what you post on Facebook. I look at what you put on Instagram. I look what we're tweeting about, which JR's probably doing right now because he's fallen in love with Twitter over the last couple of weeks. I get that. He's going to tweet what I just said just now on Twitter. So if you're looking, trend with him. I know you love what we're doing. I'm not putting that down. Please don't hear that. But this is one of those areas, as we move forward, that honestly we just have to step up in. We just do. All right, so are we good? Or is everybody kind of feeling uncomfortable? Whew. All right, I am. So, because you're all looking at me and the smiles have kind of changed a little bit. I'm not quite sure. We just gave you Chick-fil-A last week, folks. I mean, oh, they weren't here. Never mind. All right, so here we go. 3 reasons today. 3 reasons why someone who would love the church would not have a plan for how to give the church. All right? 3 reasons why somebody would say, I really love my church, but I don't have a going on plan. 3 reasons. Here's the first one. The first one is simply this. You just hadn't thought of it before. You just hadn't thought of it. You've never thought, oh, I need to come up with a plan. So for you, now you've thought of it. I've helped you out a great deal. Check that box off. We're good to go. You know what I mean? You just never thought of it before. You may be thinking, Greg, honestly, I just never have thought about it a whole lot. You know, the bucket comes by this morning. I've never thought about having a plan. You know, well, I'm telling you this morning, we need you to have a plan. See, this is a really fair question. I mean, it's a really fair question from where I sit. Listen, I can't back off from it today because this subject matter is more uncomfortable for me in any ways than you'll ever know. I can't back off from it today because I'm embarrassed. I'm afraid of what you guys might think, especially if this is your first time to church and we're talking about money. So you can say, I've only been to that church once and all they've ever talked about is money. I thought about that this morning. You know what I mean? It's all they talk about. I've been there once. It's all they've talked about. If this is your second week, we talk about it half the time. Third week, a third of the time you've been here, we've talked about money. I can't back away from it. So no matter how long you've been a Christian, or if you're not a Christian, but you still attend a church, I think it's a fair question for me to ask this morning. What's our plan? What's your plan for financially supporting us? What's your plan? Now listen, I'm not asking you how much. I won't do that. I'm not even going to tell you what I want you to do yet. Okay? I just want us to be aware, but I don't want to hesitate to say what's our plan. What are we going to do? Because so much is at stake. at what God's called us to do here in West Sylvania. So you should have an answer to that. So you just haven't thought about it before, so that takes care of you. Just haven't thought about it. Now I'm good. I'll think about it next week. I have a plan. We'll come up with a plan. You're good. So you haven't thought about it. Number 2 is this. Number 2 is you haven't taken time to create a plan. You just haven't taken time to create a plan. You know, you're sitting here this morning, you're going, yeah, Greg, listen. You know, my giving is kind of really spontaneous. You know, the bucket comes by, and I don't have any cash because none of us carry cash on us anymore. If I don't think about it the night before, if I don't think about it in the morning, I left my checkbook there. My giving is kind of spontaneous. You know, I just haven't taken time to think about my plan to set it up. All right, now, I want to make sure we hear this. I want to make sure everybody hears this. We don't simply want you to have a plan for giving this morning. Okay? Everybody breathe? Good, a couple of you did. We want you to have a triple plan. Our leadership team wants you to have a triple plan this morning. Here's what it looks like. We want you to have a savings plan, right? We want you to have a savings plan because if you're responsible, that's what we do. A lot of us here have a savings plan, and because if you're like me, you're not disciplined enough to do it, that once it comes into your paycheck, it's automatically sucked out off to your 401k or 403b or 401. I don't know what you're doing savings-wise, but you know, a lot of us have saving plans that when we make our money, it's taken out, it's already put away because we just know that if it's left up to us, that's probably not going to be the first check that we write because there's too many other things that are pressing on us. We want you to have a savings plan. And then secondly, we want you to have a spending plan, which many of us call a budget, right? We want you to have a spending plan. And then thirdly, because I love you and because I'm your pastor, we want you to have a giving plan. Because you know what? A lot of us have that first one, a savings plan. A lot of us have the second one. And even if you don't, all we would need to do today is sit down and look at your credit card statement or your bank account to know it's going out someplace. So whether you plan it or not, we have a spending plan, but we want you today to think about having a giving plan. We want you to sit down today and decide, how am I going to give to my church in an ongoing way? Because if you don't have a triple plan, if you don't have this plan, here's what's going to happen. We are going to save too little, spend too much, and give leftovers. Leftovers. Yeah. How many of you love leftovers? Now, this one's actually pretty good because this is Elizabeth Sorge's sweet chili rice. Sherry brought this in this morning. It's really tempting to me right now, but there goes a piece of it right now. My bet is today, if you invited somebody after church this morning over to your house, or this week, you meet somebody this morning, you're like, hey, come on over for dinner. When they show up at 6 o'clock, you're not going to your refrigerator, popping open this baby and putting it in the microwave. As good as it may be, it's just not what we do because it's kind of it's a little disgusting, right? Somebody walks in the house, you don't know what's been growing in here. Well, pop it in, stir it up, throw some salt on it, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. That's what we do. Our kids eat it every single time. But listen, don't tell them that. Okay, they're not all in here. But leftovers. Because the truth is, I'm not trying to get on your case this morning, but the truth is that most of us are giving leftovers. Because the average Christian, it's what the average Christian does. We pop open our wallets today. Let me get mine. It's got my piece of gum for afterwards. We pop it over our wallets today, and notice we haven't taken the offering yet, by the way. Strategic thinking on our part. You get out your wallet, or you get out your purse, and you look and you see what's left over, right? That's how the average Christian tends to give. Or we pop one up our checkbook today and we go, whew, can't give this month. Things are really, really tight. So we'll give next month. And the reason it's tight is because we've already consumed it all. It's already gone in all these different directions. So we walk in here today, we look and we give what's left over. But listen, here's what's really great. I've got the best news for you this morning. This is the coolest thing, the absolute coolest thing. Even if you give or don't give, if you never give a cent, here's the great thing. I'm still going to continue to get up here every single Sunday. Well, not every single Sunday. As often as I'm scheduled to speak, I will get up here every single Sunday. We will still continue to put a band up here every Sunday. We will continue to put a program together. We will continue to be the church even if we're living on leftovers. Because that's what we do. It's who we are. It's the church. So if you were to ask me, all right, Greg, let me really ask you a big question. Give me your 15-second message for how I should manage my money. I'll tell you what, I can do it in less than 15 seconds. Here's how we expect you to manage your money. We expect you to give first, save second, and live thirdly. Give, save, live. That's how Christians manage their money. They give, they save, they live. And we live on the leftovers. We give first, we save second, and then we live off the leftovers. That's what we do. Now, here's the other deal. If you are 35 years of age and older, all right? If you're 35 years of age and older, I can almost make this bet. If you're 35 years of age or older, which is where I happen to fall this morning, you wish you could go back to your 20-somethings when you just gotten your first job. You wish you could go back and embrace this principle, right? If you're 35 years of older, you wish you could go back and have thought back then, I should give first, I should save second, and I should live off what's left over. Because if we had done that when we were 20-somethings, we'd have more money right now. We just would. We would have wasted less money, and honestly, if you're like me, you would have spent a lot less money on stupid things. Right? Look at you can tell everybody's 35 and older because they're all going, right. So this morning, please hear this. This morning is not about us getting your money. It's not even about us needing your money, even though we're going to talk about that here in a second. Bottom line, I want us to be great followers of Jesus. I want us to be great followers of Jesus, and so we all need to answer the question, what is my plan? What is my plan for the ongoing support of the church that I love? You need a savings plan, you need a spending plan, and you need a giving plan. So that's a fair question. And for the rest of us, the 66% of this morning here who are not ongoing givers, come on. Step it up, join with us. We've got too much to do. Now here's the third reason, and this one I want to talk about for a second, because this one just gets kind of weird and goofy and strange all at the same time, just to be absolutely honest with you. Here's the third reason why people don't have an ongoing plan to give to their church. Third reason, they don't think the church needs their money. That's the third reason. Now, if you've been daydreaming, texting, twittering, whatever it is you're doing right now, put that down. I need everybody's attention. All right, just put it aside. You can tweet the second, because you even see we have our hashtag down the bottom that you can hashtag all this sort of stuff. We want you engaged with social media, but right now I need your attention. Here's the problem this morning. Almost all of us today walk in from previous church experiences, right? All of us, for the most part, have come in this morning from a previous church experience. And for some of us, we're coming in from churches where they needed our money. And the reason we knew they needed our money is because what they talk about every week. Hello? What they talk about? Money. Now, I know, if you're here for the first time, it's all we talk about too. But I get that. But, not like these churches. Like, in these churches, and I've been part of them in the past, in these churches, like, you go to take up the offering, the pastor gives a mini sermon on why you should give. Some of you went to these churches where they didn't just take up one offering, they took up two. I was in a church that took up 4 offerings one time. 4 offerings. It was kind of cool, actually, the way it happened. And then it's Pastor Appreciation Month, and it's Pastor's birthday, and then, we need carpet, and then the roof is falling apart. And so it seems like in these churches, there's always an excuse to come up with for why they needed more money. And you know what happened? What you did in those churches? We gave. We gave because we felt guilty. Because we were talking about it all the time. It just seemed to be the most pressing need of the church, but we gave. It's like they would call us, or maybe they would call us, or we get these little pledge cards. We'd fill these pledge cards out, telling them how much money we were going to give. And we talked about money so much that you know what happened to all of us? We just got tired. We did. We were just wore out from every week hearing about how much money the church needed. We gave. But we weren't happy givers. We weren't cheerful givers. We were, oh Lord, here we go again givers. But we gave. We gave. So you attended the church, but you didn't like it. It was very clear the church needed your money. It's very clear the church needs my money. All right? So we just got tired. And there's all kinds of weird stuff that goes on in the church and the money whole thing. I get that. So here's what happened. You left the church that needed your money. You left the church that needed your money, and you showed up someplace else. Maybe you walked in here this morning. And even though it's really, really obvious that we're just starting and we have a lot of needs, honestly, we have not talked about this all that much. This may be the 3rd time in 7 months I've mentioned it. So if you're here again for the first time, we talk about 100% of the time. Some of you have this. But really, we have had to talk about it early on, but we have not. We have just made it a point that we're not going to be one of those churches that every single week says, all right, well, we've got this plank wall up here, but we don't have any lights. And The sound system, that's borrowed. It's on rent, so we got to give that back at some point. We just haven't been that way. And so it'd be very easy. It'd be very easy for some of you to walk in this morning and go, wow, it doesn't seem like they need my money. I mean, I walk in this morning, I was here last week, and that wasn't up here last week, and this wasn't done last week, and it seems like there's new toys over in the kids' area, and everything's clean. There's even some new paint in different areas, and so it would be and we've got cameras, by the way, now in the back, which aren't ours. We have cameras, and, you could walk in every week, and you see all this stuff starting to step up, and you could go, hey, this is cool, because I don't think they need my money here either. All right, so there must be a lot of generous people around here giving a lot of their money because things seem to be really working fine. They don't seem to need my money here, and I like that. Here's the other thing that's kind of interesting and funny at the same time. So then we take up the offering, all right? We take up the offering, and this is the best part because we're going to tell you again today. If you're visiting with us, this is the only part of the program we didn't plan with you in mind today. If you're visiting with us, let this go on by. We don't want you to give. Thanks for being here. But we take up the offering and we hand it to you, and this is what we all kind of do. The offering bucket comes by, and whether we believe it or not, we all kind of glance in. We kind of look around, and we look at the $5.92 that's in here. And then we look at the sound system, and the lights, and the heat, and the plank board up here. And we kind of look at that, and we go, and you look at me and go, wow, that's kind of great. He doesn't have a real job. I actually get paid to do this, which is kind of cool. But we kind of look in here, and we look at what's happening with kids, and we can kind of look at all this stuff, and we go, all right, here's the deal. Something else is going on here that I'm not aware of. Like something's going on because there's no way this is paying for that. I'm kind of glancing as it goes by and yeah, that's just not happening. This $5.92 isn't keeping the heat on here at 321. Have you ever thought that? Don't raise your hand. I do every week. I kind of do every week. I look around, and I understand that you kind of look and you see all this kind of stuff going on. You put your $5 in, it automatically doubles the amount that's in the bucket. And then you look at everything that's going on, and you kind of go, I don't know how they're doing this. I don't know how every week this $5.92 just keeps populating itself. It must be a God thing. Like God's doing the whole fishes and loaves things again, and paint showing up, and plank walls, and Greg still has a job. He doesn't go back to Bed Bath & Beyond just yet. And so I know how we can think, because I know that's how I've tended to think it sometimes. But listen, we're all smart. So we just assume. We assume that because this isn't paying for that something else must be going on. I mean, we're even giving away free coffee mugs. I mean, that's not today because we ran out of the old ones, which are now vintage. If you have one of those, that's great. You can eBay it. It just doubled in price this week, which is awesome. We're getting new ones made up, but we're giving away mugs when you come in. So obviously, like there's some money here. I mean, there's some money flowing, but it's not coming from these. It's not coming from the buckets. So it doesn't seem that the church this morning really needs my money. So it just confirms all of our suspicions that we don't have to have a plan for giving to the church. All right? Are we good? Okay, so watch this, because this is how this all tends to work together. Follow this with me for a second. Here's how it goes. We don't want to attend a church that needs our money because that's just painful and awful, right? Every week you have to hear about it. And every week you're hearing about, well, if you don't give, this isn't going to happen. Or you start hearing about, hey, you need to do this because we're not going to be able to afford that. And we all know that if an organization or a church is always on the financial brink of going bankrupt, it's just poor leadership. That's really what's to blame. It's poor leadership. So we know that, and that's why we don't want to give to a church that needs our money. So we won't give to that church. But here's the other problem. We also don't want to give to a church that doesn't seem to need our money. So here's what results. In the end, you never plan to give to a church that you plan to attend. Does that make sense? We don't want to give to a church that needs our money, and we don't want to give to a church that doesn't seem to need our money, which means in the end, we never have a plan to give to the church that we attend. So let me ask you, as the pastor leader, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, what do I do with that? Where do we go with that this morning? Like, I could this week decide to get our leadership team together on Wednesday nights and go, all right, guys, here's the deal. We got to create a crisis. So spend everything you've got. Take that $5.92 we have left. Let's just blow that out the door and buy a mug so we can give that away next week. We could just say, let's throw caution to the wind. Let's just spend everything. And then next week, I'll get up here on Sunday morning and go, all right, folks, friends, we have needs this morning. We could take our iPhone and put a video together and walk over to the children's area and go, hey, don't you want to support our kids' ministry? Don't you want the babies to have clean diapers? Or you want to smell poopy pants everywhere? Yeah, we could do that. We could show you all these kinds of videos. Don't you want to have snow removed from the parking lot? Don't you like to have lights and heat? We could create a crisis every week, but you know what would happen? Here's what would happen. It would just be wearing and tiring, and you would just be in the same place you were at if you were at the church that was constantly asking you for money. You would get tired of it, and you would leave. So we have a real dilemma. I have a real dilemma on my hands as I sit here. All right? Now, here's the other thing that's crazy. It's just kind of goofy when you think about it. All right? Let me ask you another question. Do you do business or give money to stores and businesses that need your money? Or do you give your cash to businesses and stores that provide goods and services? Did you get that? Do you do business with corporations, businesses, stores? You go to Franklin Park today. Do you give your money to stores that need your money? Or do you give to stores and corporations that provide goods and services? So, a couple of years ago, how many people remember Circuit City? Okay? How many remember a couple years ago, Circuit City was going bankrupt, right? All right, so how many of you, several years ago, when Circuit City was going bankrupt, got on the phone and called your friends and said, hey, if you've got to buy electronics, don't go to Best Buy. And don't go to Costco. Don't go to Amazon.com. Don't go to ABC Warehouse. You've got to go to Circuit City. You got to go to Circuit City. Did you do that? No, most of us went back and went, wow, sucks to be them. If you're employed, good luck. Best Buy will maybe hire you. You got some experience, but most of us didn't do that. Most of us weren't like, hey, we need to give money to companies that need our business. That's not the way we operate. So here's my question. It's a tough one, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Why do we treat Disney and Starbucks better than the church? Why do we treat Disney and Starbucks and any other corporation, businesses, stores that provide goods and services? Why do we treat them better than the church? Because let me ask you another question. When your marriage starts to fall apart, when there's tension, when there is struggle, when you don't know where else to go, are you going to call Mickey and Minnie? Are you going to go off to Franklin Park, walk into the Disney store and be like, I need to talk to somebody right now. My marriage is falling apart. I don't care who's behind the counter, just let them talk to me. Or, God help us all, you have an issue with your teenager. All right? Things aren't going real well at home. Do you call the Starbucks on Talmadge and ask for your barista? Hey, you need to talk to Jody today. Got struggles with my teenager. No, we don't do that. Do you pick up your iPhone and call Tim up in Cupertino, California? No. Listen, we don't do that. You know what happens? We show up at the church that we love. And we call the church that we love. And here's absolutely great news. When you show up at the church that you love with a need that you have, we will never check your giving record. We will never look to see if you've ever given us a cent. Because this is the church. And this is what we do. This is what we do. We won't ask. So why? Why would anyone who loves their church, why? And give more money to, and listen, I'm not against Starbucks, obviously. Okay, I'm not. But why would we do that and provide money to places like those when we have a church? But that's how things typically go. Well, since they don't seem to need it, I'm not going to give it. It just seems irrational. Or if you're a Christian today, just go back to the church that constantly tells you they need your money and get beat up and feel painful and awful about that, because I don't know when the next time we'll even talk about this is. It's not part of my regular plan. It wasn't part of the plan this week until we looked at it. All right, so here's the surprise this morning. You knew it was coming. All right, here's the surprise. We actually do need the other 66% of you to step up, because we do need your money. Just flat out, honestly. We need your money this morning. But listen, we do not need, I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't need your money. We don't need your money today to pay the heating bill. 34% of us do that. Okay? We don't need your money today to pay my salary and my family's benefits. We don't need that. 34% of us take care of that. We don't need your ministry. We don't need your money today to provide for children's ministry, because 34% of us do that. Okay? But like we talked about last week, if you weren't here last week, if you were, like we talked about last week, we want to be better, because we believe if we get better, people will demand that we get bigger. We want to be a church that constantly thinks about how do we help restore people back into this relationship with Jesus and restore families and marriages and relationships. How do we do that? We are committed to that. We are committed to this community so that when people out there hear the word church, they think yes and not no. We're committed to this community that when people out there hear church, they think they're for us and not what do they want from us. That's what we are committed to. And in order to do that, we just have to have everybody step up. We have to have you engage with more than just your time. And I am so grateful. Please hear this. I am so grateful for the amount of time so many of us are spending here every week. We also have to have more than your talent. And I'm so grateful for the talents that you have, that you're putting to use. Yesterday's work day, just watching people do whatever's asked of them. I'm so grateful for that. Those areas are great. But we have to engage with our money. We just do. I know it's the most sacred thing to all of us right now. It's why we've all gone from smiles to, ooh, I'm not really sure if I like where he's going with this right now. Not just so we can pay the electric bill. Because, listen, nobody wants to pay the electric bill here anyways. I've been in enough churches where the person comes up to me and they say, yeah, I don't like to give money just to keep things going. I like to give to special events and special things, to which I've always wanted to. I've never done it. But I've always wanted to look at that person and say, that's because you think you're special. And you think your money's special. You think your money's more special than my money and their money. And that's why you like giving to special things. I get that. I've heard that enough in the past. I don't like giving just to the general fund. But hey, if Ashley needs televisions, we're going to give. I get that. But honestly, I just want to shake you and go, you are not that special. You just aren't. Okay? So, all right. Let me show you some things that we have need of. Are we all ready? Are we good? Have it seemed? Didn't want to seem like I was beating this up this morning. I can't avoid the message today, guys. I just can't. So the nice thing is you don't have to hear me next week. You can kind of write me off. But here's what I want to give to you. If you're those people that like special events and projects, this is for you. All right, this is not our stage. Those aren't even our musicians. This is a Google picture I grabbed from somewhere. And you're all looking, I know what you looked at. You didn't look and going, who's that playing guitar? You looked at the big thing in the top left corner. We got our quote this week for sound, lights, and projections just for the auditorium. We got 2 quotes. We're getting a third. 2 quotes this week for what we need to do projection, so you can actually see. Sound, because this is borrowed. It's got to go back to somebody at some time. And then to do the whole place, lights, whatever we need. Both estimates came in from professional companies that came in and looked at our place. It wasn't an outside in. We're looking at $40,000 to $41,000 to get our auditorium ready. Greg, why is that important? Because this is everybody's first experience. When they walk in the doors and they're checking out church for the first time, this is their first impression. This first impression has to be really, really good because we want them to come back. Now, you may sit and go, but if they really love Jesus, hey, they don't. They're our target for Sunday morning. Okay? That's okay to clap with that. We've talked about that the last 3 weeks. I'm not going after Christians on Sunday morning. I want the person that's sleeping in right now over there watching CNN, living in Eagle Trace. I want them here. And they're going to come in going, I don't know about this church thing, but the coffee was really good. And the projection, that was kind of awesome. And wow, I wish I could do that with pallets. Because that's our expectation. And here's what we're saying. We want you to come in and have a great first experience. Because if you have a great first experience, it may change your opinion about the church. And if it changes your opinion about the church, then maybe, just maybe, your ideas about God and Jesus may change too. Everybody hear that? So I'm not going to apologize that we're not going to sit up here and we're going to go grab some flashlights or some work lights at Home Depot and plug them in and shine them on our light at great angles. Because I would walk out of that place, to be honest with you. Hey, guests are coming to your house. How much time do you take to prepare? Guests are coming. We are planning for April, and we are planning for guests to come. We are praying that on April 20th when we launch, by the looks of it already, we will probably have to be at 2 services on Easter Sunday. Hey, by the way, that's a good thing. If if we are doing things right, that will happen. If we do this, gravitational pull inwards, we'll only need one service. But if we're getting excited like it looks what's happening, and we're start telling people, Easter Sunday, we're going to have 2 services. And a microphone might be good for me by the second service, because I'm really yelling my lungs out right now, to be honest with you. We want them to see the songs. We want them to have a great first experience. But we just know in order to reach that goal, all of us have to step it up. Let me show you another one. Here's another project. Some of you might have noticed when you came in today, the sign above the door is not us. If you walked in thinking you were at Quarry Ridge, my apologies. They're meeting right now down at Maplewood Middle School. So you can go visit them. They outgrew this place. They're down there. But it still kind of irks me a little bit when I drive in and go, oh, that's right. We have a sign above our building. And what we want to do, we have to do, is we have to rebrand the building and the sign on Centennial. Now, here's the good news. The other church is going to pay for removal of their building, or else I would have been up there with a crowbar like last week in the snow trying to pop that puppy off. All right? Not because I don't love the church, but I just want people think we're driving into Quarry Ridge today. We've gotten, what, 3 estimates? Where are we at, Brendan? 4, 3, 2. We know it's going to cost anywhere between $8,000 and $10,000. I know. Just to pop off a sign and put it up, that's not even the most expensive one. The one out there on Centennial is the most expensive one. But I want people driving by on Centennial. I want people, I sat out here last week, I had 2 people walk by the door and look in the window. For a minute, I thought it was at West Toledo and needed to go give them money. Then I realized, no, I'm in Sylvania. They were just coming from the Rite Aid going over here to Cobblestone. So I kind of backed off and went, oh, good, I don't have any money to give them anyways. But we want people to know. We want to announce, here's who we are. You're going to hear about Church321. If you're driving by Centennial going, where are they? Where are they? Here's where we are. So we know we're going to need in the neighborhood of 10,000. Here's another one. We want to finish off our cafe, which is funny because we haven't even really started it yet. Where you're sitting, to your right and my left, behind that wall, is another whole room, which we don't want you to see right now because all of our junk's over there. All the extra paint, all the tables, all the ladders. We just don't pay attention to what's over there. But what we want to do is make the front end of that a cafe. Consider the area you're sitting in. Greg, why would you put money into a cafe? Front end experience. People coming over for the first time, and we're going to say, hey, here's a mug. Go get your free coffee down at our cafe. And we're going to have people down there that are intentionally looking to say, hi, good morning. My name is Deb. Who are you? Want to meet? Glad that you're here this morning. We want that to be a place where people connect, where even after service they go because they want to. We are about making relationships happen because we believe that transformation and spiritual transformation happens best in relationships. So if we can take somebody who's walking in here the first time and introduce them to somebody down there and they get a cup of coffee or a mochaccino, that's what my goal is. I know it's a big one, but then we want to make that happen because we want that front-end experience to be a great experience for the person who's coming in here. Better yet, I want the person you've invited from work or from your neighborhood that's either unchurched or de-churched to walk in here and go, this is really cool. This is cool. Because I also know you people out there will not invite people to friends and things that you are embarrassed of. You just won't. That's why many of us haven't invited our friends to church in the past. But if we're excited about it, if we walked in this morning and went, this is freaking awesome. I know I said that, sorry. But you'll go back and go, you got to come and see this. There's something going on here. So we're looking at about $10,000 for the cafe. And then right over there is a meeting room and it's a prayer room that right now has a drum case in it. And we'd like to finish that off too. All right? How about another one? Children's ministry, Ashley. We value our kids' ministry. We value some of what Ashley's doing just over here in Angel. We have some needs over there. We think 5,000 will finish off her area because, hey, listen, when somebody comes with their kids, we want them to look over and go, hey, they value kids here. Because it's just not like a Simon Says over there in an Etch-a-Sketch saying, knock yourself out. Some of you don't even know what an Etch-a-Sketch is or a Simon Says. I just dated myself. Ashley didn't even know what the Village People were when I referenced them a week ago. I felt very old. Jeremy, let's go to the next one. Here's the best news in the world. Within a few weeks, all of you will be sitting on this. Is that not awesome? That's right. No more plastic seat butt on Sunday mornings. Because you're going to walk in and we're going to look even more official because we're going to have these nice chairs. And listen, you would not think it would take a team of elders 3 weeks to decide which chair was more comfortable. But we did we not?
We sure did.
We sent, God bless, where's Mike? Mike sent for samples from how many different places, and we would bring it in on a Wednesday night, and we'd say, all right, guys, prepare yourselves, sit. And we tried out chairs. And then we looked at cost, and we went, what's cheapest and feels good? And this is what we came up with. All right, now here's the great thing. See that $13,000 mark? You don't have to pay for that. Somebody outside of our church, when they heard we were launching in December, gave us all the money for our chairs. We didn't pay for that. We didn't. So, that's a great answer to prayer. Now, if 66% of us will come up with a plan, we can make some of these things happen. Not because we need your money, not because we want the best. However, I guess I can say that. I want to put on a good first impression for people who walk in this place, because it may be the only shot I get. It may be the only shot you get. Your friend who comes from work, and hear me, their decision about this place is made within the first 5 minutes they walk into our building. Your decision was today, within the first 5 minutes. Let me show you another place. How many of you know what this is? How many of you know what that is? That is the gymnasium for my elementary school in New Haven, Ohio. That's my gym. On the other side was a school. These were old days. We had to brave the elements to go to gym class and walk through that white door into the gym, which is on the right. That's the gym for my elementary school. That is where, in 1971, the Willard Christian Alliance Church began, the church that my family and 4 others planted in Willard, Ohio. I remember going to church in my gym. After just being there all week, I got to go back on Sunday. Not only that, I got to sit with my mom as my Sunday school teacher behind a curtain on a stage with my brother, who was the only other person in my Sunday school class. Needless to say, if things did not go well in Sunday school, they did not go well Sunday afternoon at home. Okay? But my family, along with 4 others, that's the building they got that they could rent on the weekend. And it grew. Within an amount of time, we bought an abandoned furniture store in Willard, Ohio. And this is what the church looks like this morning if you were to drive by it on 224. The old furniture company is on the left. That's the brand new, well, not brand new auditorium. It's been there for years. But I can remember being in that middle part, the sanctuary, when it had snowed. And when my dad woke my brother up on a Saturday morning and said, grab a shovel, we got to go shovel the snow out from the church so they can continue construction on there during the week. That's my home church. This is the place where Jennifer Alberts and I had our youth group experience. Jennifer, wave your hand. Yes, I grew up with Jennifer, somewhat. This is where we went for youth group, right, Jen? And this is where people like Gordon and Barb Meyer, and David and Anna Boris, and Pat and Sharon Bevere, and Billy Inman and Barb Postuma impacted my life. Oh, man, yeah, Mike was there after I came. I'd already gone by that point. I heard rumor he was there, but I was already off to college. So yeah, this is where we had our experience in youth group. This is where I was called to ministry, was at this church. I am eternally grateful this morning for a group of people who said we need a church in Willard, Ohio. We need a church that we don't have to drive a half hour to or an hour to. We need a church here that will reach the people in our community, that will care for the people in our community. We need a church. And listen, I'm so thankful for my families and others who sacrificially gave to that church, not because the church needed it. I never once heard my parents say that when it came to giving. Well, the church needs it, we got to give it. Never heard that. I watched my family make sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice so we could go from that previous picture to that. Why? Because they believed so desperately in this message that needed to get to people in Willard, Ohio. I'm grateful for those people. They've changed my life. I'm thankful for a group of people who created environments for me that I've had lifelong relationships with. My youth pastor is still my youth pastor. I don't know what else to call him. I can't even call him by his first name. I just look at him and go, hey, because he's a pastor. I don't know what to call him. He's still my youth pastor. Barb Postuma is still there. When I go home every now and then, when I'm there to be on a Sunday, she still comes up to me. She'll pay for books going through Nyack College for me. And she poured into my life. But here's what this means. You know why I show you that? Because if you love this church where you're sitting right now, it's because people gave to that church. Do you hear me? If you love the church that you're sitting in right now, it's because people gave to that church to make this happen. And if you're here from another church, you're here because people gave to that church to make this church happen. So why in the world would we not have a plan to support our church on an ongoing basis? All right, I don't have a lot of verses today, but I figure I had to have one or you wouldn't feel it was biblical this morning. And I felt like if I put a bunch of verses up here, you'd think I was scripturally manipulating you, and I don't want to do that. But I do have one really good one for you. So like if this is the one you're hanging on going, oh good, he had a verse for today. Woo! Here we go. Malachi chapter 3 and verse 10. This is what Malachi writes, or if you're Italian, it is Malachi, but that's fine. Here's what Malachi says. Bring all the tithes. Pause. What is a tithe, Greg? The tithe is something God set up in the Old Testament primarily that said, you bring the first 10% of your wealth, the first 10% of your harvest, you bring the first 10% to me. That's what a tithe is. So the Lord says, bring all the tithes into the storehouses so there'll be enough food in my temple. The temple was the church, for lack of a better word, in the Old Testament. So God is saying, bring all of the 10% into the church so the church can be what the church needs to be. Everybody get that? If you want to write that down. And then this is really interesting. I always find it interesting how the Lord addresses himself. He says the Lord of what? Heaven's armies. Like, why would he choose that phrase to identify? I don't know why. I don't know if he's saying that because if you don't, I'm just going to come down and lay a beating on you. I don't know why he chose that term there. But bring all the tithes in the storehouses so there'll be enough food in my temple. And then just look what he says. I will open the windows of what? Heaven. If you do it. I will open the windows of heaven for you. I will pour out blessings, what? So mediocre. So you can just get by. What's he say? I'll pour out blessings so great. What? You won't have what? Won't have enough room. And then God gets, I was going to say ballsy, but I can't say that in an adult setting. I had a high school moment. Just allow me that this morning. I'm still trying to transition into this whole adult thing. Then God says something he only says one time in Scripture. One time. Put me to the test. He's saying, hey, if you don't believe me, if you don't believe this whole tithe thing is going to work out, test me. If you don't believe that this is going to work, I'm just telling you to put me to the test. And some of us sit here this morning just not having tested God. And he's saying, put me to the test this morning. Bring all the tithes in the storehouse and put me to the test. But listen, I really don't need a verse this morning, do I? Isn't it just kind of common sense? Isn't it as you sit here this morning on folding chairs? And isn't this just kind of common sense? Do we really need a verse to tell us this morning? Just do and be grateful for what God has done in our lives and just do what our hearts tell us to do. Can we do that this morning? So here's the deal and I'm done. And you can blame Jeremy because he never plugged the clock back in there, so I have no clue what time it is. It was hidden underneath the blanket. So I think it was just God's way of saying, go on, Greg, go on. All right, are you ready? I really am done with this. If you don't plan to give today, if you're not willing, it's a fair question, I get it. You're going to go out of here, it's still going to be your decision. But if we still have to live off of the 34% in the upcoming weeks, here is what we're going to be forced to do. Okay, everybody ready? If we have to continue living on 34%, here's what we're forced to do. I'm going to continue to spend the majority of my week and a good portion of hours every day preparing for Sunday morning so that you can hear God's word in a relevant way. And so the people that you invite can come in here and hear a message that they can understand in a relevant way. That's number one. Number two, we are going to do our best to create a great first impression in our lobby and with our service so our guests can potentially have their minds and hearts changed about what church is, and so prayerfully eventually their hearts and minds can change as to who Jesus is. Number three, if we have to continue living on 34%, We are going to continue to try and create the best environments a church can have so that your kids can grow up with a positive attitude towards Jesus. And they can fall in love with Him when they're young, so that the anchor is set so deep in their hearts that when they begin to drift, they can't go very far. Number 4, we have plans to create a student ministry environment that engages the hearts of middle and high school students in a culture that's committed to beating the living God out of their hearts and conscience. I'm kind of passionate about that one. Number 5, we promise our facility will always look great, because we know that you will not bring people to things that you're ashamed of. So we will always do our best to make sure this place looks great. Number 6, I'm going to ensure that when you have a need, we will meet it the best that we can, regardless of whether or not you've ever given us a dime. Number 7, we're going to do everything we can without going into debt to raise the monies needed to make all of that happen. Number 8, Sherry, myself, and our family are committing to always giving a minimum of 10% to the church. That's what you'll force us to do. Because the church is the hope of the world. Because the church has the message that restores broken lives and relationships and homes, because the church is the presence of Jesus on the planet. That's why. So listen, you will never miss the money you misspend. Okay? Or you will. You'll miss the money you misspend. My bad. You'll miss the money you misspend. You'll miss the money you gamble away. You'll miss the money that you lose, and you'll miss the money that you waste. But you will never, ever miss the money you invest in the church that's in sync with the will of God. You'll never miss it. Okay? Because it's the gift that gives to generation after generation after generation after generation after generation. All right? So I want you to give, because I want you to join with a handful of us who started this little thing 7 months ago and had no idea where it was going to go. Are floored to this day that we are where we are. We want you to give because we want people to experience the same type of restoration that some of us in this room have experienced, and long for people to have that same restoration. We want you to give because we believe there's people living right in that house, and that house, and that house, and that one, and the one right behind us that need to know Jesus in a personal way. We want you to give so that people who come from a non-church background can come to a place they love to go. All right, let me pray, and we're done. Whew. Father, thank you today for people like Pastor Meyer and Barb, and for David Bors and Pat Bevere, and for Barb Postema, who are sitting this morning at that church in Willard, Ohio. Because they saw something in me, something when I was just a kid, that they felt was worth investing in. I'm so grateful for them, and honestly, God, this morning I'm grateful for my parents, who took a huge step of faith and a huge risk to begin a church in their hometown and my hometown so that people could come to know you personally. And Father, today, thank you so much for 321. I thank you so much for those who have given of their time this morning, their talents, they've given of their money to make this vision of reality. And thank you, Father, for the people here today who haven't given anything yet. They just didn't know until this morning what it was all about. Father, I pray this morning that you would stir our hearts, not so that you would bless us, because we are already so blessed. I mean, we are so far ahead right now that even in our toughest and most difficult times, we look at the world around us. Oh my gosh, we are just overwhelmingly blessed, and we are so grateful. So Father, just open our eyes and open our hearts and open our hands today to be part of what you're doing in this community, to be part of what you're doing in West Sylvania and in our country and in our world. And Father, I pray that we would be one of the most generous churches in our community. I pray that. I pray you would make us one of the most generous churches in our community, and that would motivate other churches to do the same thing for the sake of your kingdom and for the sake of your great name. Amen.